Hello and welcome to John and James Live. My name is John Hastings. I'm with my co-host, Mr. James Celo. And special guest today, we have the host of the Happiness Challenge podcast and author of the Alphabet of Happiness, workplace psychologist, Klaudia Mitura. Welcome, Klaudia. How are you today?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm great. It's Friday, so good
Friday.
vibes.
Yeah, that's what we said before you came on. We said, Klaudia, you're just way too happy. You've got a lot of energy, and two sad guys like me and James. We've sandwiched you in between us. So we'll try and bring you down throughout the podcast, shall we?
Let's
no
try.
chance. No chance.
The challenge has been set.
So,
well, the shirt's out. It's Friday. Come on. What more can you
James has shown us up here, Klaudia, with the attire.
Maybe I should be in the middle. Perhaps we just put me in the middle, and then you guys can be on the outside.
I think so. But Klaudia, let's start off. You're from Poland, aren't you? You've been here in London for 18 years now. But how did you start off your journey into the world of psychology? Did you do that at university?
Yes, absolutely. So I studied at University of York first, psychology. Then I realized that after 3 years, I kind of know everything, but also nothing. So decided to specialize and did my master's degree in occupational psychology at University of Nottingham. And from there, I really got inspired to think about organizations in more depth. And that's why I specialized through my career into work psychology and specifically into learning and development. I'm one of those people who at work annoy you with, do your training. What have you learned this week? That's me. That's what I've been doing.
All right. Okay. That's brilliant. And where did you start when you finished university? Did you go into a workplace and do organizational psychology straight away? Did you?
I started with a training delivery actually, and then built up my career into project management, then into being head of people for one of the charities, and then specialize specifically within learning and development. It's quite interesting now. I'm like trying to refresh what have I done in life, you know.
Yeah, it's hard to remember sometimes, isn't it?
So many years, like where have you started? Oh my god, oh god.
I don't know.
But that's roughly what happened. Yeah.
In that position. So just in general, Klaudia, what would you define happiness to be? Because we'll talk about your new book later, which is an exciting project and your podcast. But just in general, lots of people are talking about, happiness, well-being, that type of thing in the workplace and in general in society. What would you define happiness as being?
Mm-hmm. So I think when we really consider this concept of happiness, we need to look at it from lots of different perspectives. So on one hand, happiness is day-to-day, having joy, savoring ordinary moments, enjoying our life. We also have a happiness as a concept of life satisfaction, how satisfied you are with your life, with yourself, with overall being on this planet. And then for me personally, and I think something that more and more research is showing, is that in the words of one of the positive psychologists, Sonia Lubomirski, happiness is formation of habits. So when we actually start looking at data of happy versus less happy people, you will really see the difference lies in a lot of times within the habits, the things that we repeat daily that contribute to our well-being, that contribute to that sense of contentment and happiness. And I also personally say that for me, happiness is feeling comfortable within my own skin. And that's the one concept that I explore in my book.
Oh, nice.
Fascinating. So that's like a platform, that stability, isn't it, around those habits? I think it just gives you that structure to build your day on, that if you're constantly sort of fighting fires and all over the place, that you don't have that stability, that then these other factors can start to encroach on your mind, I guess. Is that what you're finding, that if you've got that platform, that people can build on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we really need to think about this from a perspective of a toolbox, if you like. If you have a toolbox of different habits and hacks and methods, you can then choose what serves you in the moment to help you to sustain whatever you're trying to sustain in the moment, whether it's a moment of joy, contentment, being calmer, and having that flexibility. So, for example, it might be that I'm having an argument with my husband. So, and in that moment, I can choose to think, okay, I'm going to list 3 things that I'm really grateful for him and what he brings to that relationship, and that can help me to look more holistically at the situation. It might be that I'm going into a stressful presentation at work. Okay, I'm stressing, and it's a bit more tense. I know it might be a bit tricky meeting. I can choose a habit of a sound break so that the calm music can help me, the sound vibration can impact my parasympathetic nervous system, so I can go more into restful state. Or it might be that in a specific moment, I understand that I need a break because I'm getting overwhelmed, and I choose then of being in the nature. So what happens where if you look at the happiness as a formation of habits, then you can rely on certain habits to help you to sustain it, rather than expecting that I just should be more resilient, I just should be more happy, or if I ticked off things on the society checklist, then I should always be happy because, hey, I have this job and, I got a house and etc. Therefore, I should be always happy. And I think that gives us more flexibility, but also accountability of how do we create more happiness day to day.
Yeah. Would you say those habits are more about how you think? Is that the habits that you're talking about in terms of sort of being present, noticing your thoughts, not buying into them, or not future projecting, or sort of going into the past too much? Or what would some of those fundamental habits be when it comes to somebody who would be in a more happier state?
So I think we have 2 habits that they always significantly increase the level of happiness that we see from research. And again, I think we know about them, but they one of those habits that I guess we forget to do more often because life is hectic, life is busy. And one of them is gratitude. There is really significant, repeatedly, this has been confirmed by research, that gratitude rewires our brain. And when I mean gratitude, I don't mean toxic positivity. I don't mean saying, oh, I have all these issues and I'm experiencing challenging emotions, but hey, I'm happy, everything is fine. When we talk about gratitude, we think about our ability to concentrate also on the things that are good, even though other things might be challenging or difficult for us. And repeatedly engaging in gratitude towards ourselves, at work, towards our colleagues, in our relationships, it really shows a big boost of day-to-day happiness. Another one, kindness, pro-social behavior, being kind to other people boosts our happiness, but also ripples across the network up to 5 degrees of separation. So even though I am kind to one person, that spreads and therefore creates kinder and happier society. So those 2, I'm sure everyone heard about, and I'm sure everyone says, oh yeah, I should be more kinder. Oh yes, I should write down what I'm grateful for. But we often forget about them. About them.
Yeah. It's the same as health, isn't it, James? Because James and I are from the health background. So even just drinking more water or just eating healthy food, everyone knows what to do. They should do exercise, but doing it is a slightly different thing, isn't it, James?
Well, Klaudia, what I was just listening to when you were speaking, and this is talking from my personal perspective. On any given day, I can be a very upbeat, happy person, very giving of myself and, almost kind of philanthropic with other people. Sort of I'll reach out to people, say, hi, how you doing? If I'm feeling good on that particular day. Now, on any other day, it might be very different. And I might be inside my own head and sort of fighting those demons and thinking the last thing is on my mind is being that way with other people. But what I've developed over time is these little kind of tools, like you were saying in the box, to actually start to gently pull myself out of that. And it is the gratitude piece. It's thinking about what I do have as opposed to what I don't have at that moment in time. So trying to sort of focus on the abundance as opposed to the scarcity. But some days it's really bloody hard, and it's not enough just to say, well, go and be more kind to other people and inquisitive, because we know that gives us back what we give out. We understand that, we know that. But on any given day, it can be really, really hard to do that when you're in the darkness. So are there any specific tools that you use when somebody is in that mode to bring them into the light, to be able to spread that happiness, or to get to a point where they can do that to receive it back? Is there any sort of simple hacks that you would subscribe?
So first of all, I think it starts with acceptance that we all have moments like this, sometimes less often, sometimes more often. And I think what we experience in that moment is we feel, I don't want to feel like this. This is unpleasant and I should be happy because look at all of this that is happening around me. And I think in itself that causes us to have that extra pressure. From emotional regulation, we know that suppressing our more difficult feelings doesn't serve us because they linger for longer in our body, in our mind, in our brain. So I think in moments like this, it's showing yourself a self-compassion of what do I need today in that moment. And understanding that our body also impacts our happiness and how we feel. So is it that you do need to process some emotions, which means sitting down and journaling or chatting to someone? Is it that you would just need to have a nap? Is it that you are a bit hungry? Is it that you actually need to focus on something that you are good at because you have lots of self-doubts? I think it's really difficult just to give people like one hack, but I think it's really about not feeling that you should get out within that moment, but accepting that that's how I feel. Let me sit with it within that. Let me observe it and ask myself, what is it that I need in this particular moment, and following that. If you decide that actually, okay, I would like to boost my feel-good chemicals, there are few things that can help. We already discussed gratitude, but as you said, that might be difficult. That might be like we're cheating a little bit because we're not feeling very well. So then again, being close in nature, cold showers, boosting our feel-good chemicals, thinking what are we eating in terms of our gut health from that body perspective. But I really wouldn't prescribe something as a kind of the hack, because we think and we're going into that toxic positivity that we're supposed to be happy despite, and that is not the point.
James is always looking for the shortcut. Don't worry, Klaudia.
Just that one thing. Just the one thing.
Just the one thing. What would you?
Just give me the formula. I just want to be happy. I don't want to think about all my negative emotions. I don't want to be a human in that respect. No, it doesn't happen. I'm so sorry. But
I absolutely love that. Just that sort of acknowledging that today might not be a great day. I think that's a key thing, isn't it? It's just like, and that's okay. And rather than fight it, it's just to kind of accept it and maybe just go with it. And that allows you that space to be able to think about, well, what is this? that's happening right now? You know, what is it doing? Where's it coming from? As opposed to, and we've done lots of these type of episodes around the distraction that will go to social media, or will go and do something else, to not sit with the uncomfortable emotions that we're experiencing right at that time. And it feels like that everything is geared up to do that as a distraction, so that we don't enable ourselves. And things like you were saying, journaling or meditating, but just giving yourself that space to have a little think through as to what is actually happening at this moment in time.
Yeah, definitely. Have you had life challenges, Klaudia, where you found it hard to feel happy? And what did you potentially learn from those situations, whether they're extended periods of time? I think for myself, periods of time where I've probably been less happy is probably around relationships. Sometimes if you're not in the right relationship, it feels hard to get out. You don't really want to face the problems. For me, I don't know if you've experienced times in life where it's been extended times of not feeling as happy as you could be.
Oh my God, how long do we have?
Give us the nitty gritty, Klaudia. Come on, the best bits, the misery.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so the reason actually I started the podcast, The Happiness Challenge, and I wrote the book, The Alphabet of Happiness, was that back in 2020, I was experiencing really difficult time personally. So as many, pandemic cut me out from my family. I couldn't travel to Poland to see my family, and I didn't know when I'm going to be able to do so. I lost my job within hospitality sector. We needed to cancel our wedding due to pandemic. I had a pipe burst in the flat above me, and I had water coming into my apartment, and no one would come to repair it because, hey, COVID, you know, and no one will come to your house. A little bit later, after that, I got COVID, and I was suffering with long COVID for like 8 months. My father got diagnosed with a lung cancer, and all of this was happening one thing at a time. You know, almost when you think like, you know, when you think it cannot get worse, and then you have like drip, and you have a drip on your head, and you're like, wow, it's just got worse. Interesting. Okay. And during that time, like you said, I had this need I want to be happy, but my understanding of happiness prior to my journey around happiness, a science of happiness, was, hey, you happy when life is good, you unhappy when life is not good. And really, during that time, I started the happiness experiment really because I wanted to find an alternative to that. And I wanted to have even a few moments of when I could find, if not happiness, feeling content, if not happiness, feeling a bit of joy. And really, this is what I have learned during the times when it was really, really tough. And some of the aspects that I mentioned now, they still continuing in my life, is about those moments, those glimmers, if you like, when you find that piece of purpose, when you are able to take a bit of breather and sit with yourself, when you can find the joy in every day. And all of the hacks, the habits that I talk about really boil down to that. So that's what I try to do when I am experiencing difficulties and challenges in life, is to go back to my toolbox and think, okay, how do I feel? This is what it is. What could I do to maybe give myself a moment of happiness?
Yeah. Do you think
so
that's
do you
part
find
of the
then? Sorry.
Oh my goodness!
I know. We do this. We do
too many questions.
Just quickly again, whilst you were talking, thinking.
Yeah.
You know, how much of what that feeling is intuitive into you, and how much is it around the learnings that you have? I kind of liken it to John and I both coming from a fitness background. And it's like, well, if we're not keeping active, there's kind of almost more pressure because we know what we should be doing. We know the science of it and how good it is for us. If we're not doing it, it sort of compounds the issue even more. So knowing what you know and then feeling that way is just like, but I know the science.
Yeah, Klaudia, you should be happy all the time.
But did it feel like that was more kind of pressure to feel a particular way because you had the knowledge?
I personally haven't felt like that. I feel I was approaching it as a scientist. This is an experiment. Let's see what happens. And then with a little bit of curiosity. This is what I'm experiencing. This is what I'm feeling. I'm going to try this. Let's see what happens, without necessary expectation that I have to feel better or that my emotional state has to change in this specific moment. I just was very curious about this process. With the happiness boosting habits, what you will find is that the brain picks on that, and after a while some things becomes a bit more natural and habitual because, hey, we're speaking about habits. And I can see now that in certain moments when I find life overwhelming, I can see that certain mechanisms started now kicking more naturally. So this idea of what you just said, that how much is natural, how much is a bit learned. But from a research perspective, just I think this is interesting. Again, referring back to Sonia Lubomirsky, there is, of course, certain level of genetics that determine our level of happiness. It's called the happiness threshold because the genes impact our body, the wiring of our brain. Of course, life circumstances impact our happiness. I think if you're thinking, well, it shouldn't be the case. Well, it is. Of course, if we are in a very, as John, you were mentioning, maybe unhappy relationship, maybe we're going through some struggles at work. Of course, that will impact our happiness. But she's still really shown that the really high percentage of what help us to stay happy or maintain happiness or come back to happiness are those habits that we have. So I think the line gets blurred between how much naturally we are a joyful person to then what we can learn and what we can enhance. And I think that's what starts happening for me now.
Yeah, no, I like that. And in terms of happiness, Klaudia, do you think it's part of your belief as well? Let's say, if you're in a house by yourself and you hear a bump in the night and you believe in ghosts, you're going to have a visceral reaction to that. Whereas if you don't believe in ghosts, your body chemistry is not going to be the same when you hear the bump in the night. So your actual belief systems, everything you believe about what happens to you, whether it's happening for a reason or if you're going through challenge, that it's going to, it's there to help you. If you go to the gym, it's hard, you're in pain, but you know that in 2 weeks' time, you're going to be stronger. Is happiness a belief system, would you say?
I think it's a certain type of mindset, especially when it comes to thinking where your happiness comes from. So again, if you're more externally oriented, you'll be saying, well, I can only be happy if, and then you have a set of terms that has to be met. And if those terms are not met, then I'm sorry, I cannot be happy. You may be thinking that happiness is only reserved for special occasions, and that's only when you are allowed to be happy. Otherwise, you know what? It's just hard work and just grind of life, and that's what it should be. You might be really internalizing it, saying, okay, happiness is actually, I really need to, it's only on me. So if I'm not happy, it's only my fault, and I should just always be resilient. So if like, people have different beliefs where that happiness comes from. And I think that can determine, therefore, how you behave towards that happiness and how you shape it. I think it's interesting to understand from research. This is very interesting research by Dr. Raj Raghunathan, who speaks about something called happiness paradox. So in his experiments, he would ask participants to answer this scenario. He would say, well, imagine that the all-powerful genie comes to your door and ask you, say, well, I'm an all-powerful genie, and I'm going to grant you 3 wishes. And what do you wish for? And in his experiment, as we would all probably answer that, people list, of course, things like fame, money, love, health, you name it. And then you ask participants, okay, but why are you wishing all of that? And they will say, well, to be happy, of course. And he says, well, but if Genie is all powerful, why wouldn't you ask Genie for happiness? If you're asking for all those things to be happy, why wouldn't you ask for happiness? And happiness paradox is this concept in positive psychology in which we all want to be happy, but we tend to deprioritize happiness along the way in the name of things that's supposed to make us happy. And I think in a world with so much social media presence, that becomes even more visible, because other people showing us, and we have access to that all the time, what happiness should be. And that, I think, causes us lots of distress and social comparison of what is happiness for us. But I think understanding we have this happiness paradox help us to make more autonomic choices of what happiness means to me and what I'm going to do today to invest in my happiness.
Yeah, that's a good point, isn't it, James? Because I don't know if you heard of like the marshmallow test, where they do it with kids and they say, if you can save
gratification.
Delayed gratification. So the more successful people won't take the marshmallow. The hungry kid like James will eat it straight away. So it's that type of thing. How does that correlate? Because sometimes you can get into a bit of a hamster wheel of delayed gratification. It's like with entrepreneurs, they end up selling the business and being successful, but it doesn't really make them feel how they thought they was going to feel. And then they're just on a new treadmill. How do we sort of square that circle?
Square that circle.
Is that a term?
What do we do here?
Term.
Oh my goodness, that is a tough one. Can you? So
we're bringing you the tough questions here, Klaudia.
That's what we do.
It's an intellectual podcast.
You should have said beforehand. I would have prepared. I would have prepared for this conversation. But I'm just trying to unpack, because there is quite a lot of it. Plus, I'm thinking about marshmallows right now. So Jen, what's the question?
I forgot to tell you I'm a genius.
Break it down, John. Break it down.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
So sometimes people are so focused on delayed gratification that they miss happiness. So I see it in broader sense about society, that we end up working hard for the house, for the career, but then we miss out on like community, connection, love, the actual things that matter in life. Where are we going wrong here?
Okay, I got you now. And I stopped thinking about marshmallows, so it's so good. So I think, so this comes to the assumption that we have from conventional wisdom and overall society that I'll be happy if. So coming back to those conditions. So if you think that happiness is an external aspect, that you need to fulfill certain conditions to be happy, you're right. You're not really looking for happiness in the moment. You're not very much looking for all those specific aspects you have mentioned: connection, love, self-compassion. And it's also misunderstanding that from a perspective that people believe they will be more successful, they'll be successful, and then they'll be happy. Whereas research of positive psychology shows that when you are successful, when you are, now you see, I'm now getting confused with the research. When you are happy, then you'll be more successful. So if we look in the workplace, for example, and we look at staff engagement, there is really true research that shows that if you are successful, if you are happy, you are more successful in the sense that you are more productive. You have more creative solutions and more innovative solutions to different problems in the business. You have better relationships with your colleagues. You are more likely to get promoted. You are better at sales, customer services. So, and all of that brings you more success and impact in long term. And the reason for that is our brain cognitively performs better when we are happy than when we are unhappy or neutral. Because if we are unhappy, lots of our cognitive energy is spent on worrying about the future, being anxious, processing self-doubt, not having really good memory or remembering things, etc. So I often say to the cynics who say, Klaudia, I don't come to work to be happy. And actually I need the promotion. I need to land this big job. I need all of this. And then I'll be happy in the future. I say, well, read the research, because research shows that if you are happy, you'll be more likely to be successful.
Interesting.
And I think that's the kind of putting stuff out into the ether, isn't it? It's this giving to receive thing that you mentioned right at the beginning. And I see it time and time again. If I'm positive in a situation, or I give out a good feeling and a vibe, then I get that back, which then makes me feel better. So it's a self-fulfilling thing. And when you're not feeling great and you've got a miserable look on your face, well, people respond to that. This is how we interact with each other. Are you a threat? Are you not a threat? If you're there looking miserable, you're perceived as potentially a threat. I don't know quite what they're going to do. It's a little bit sort of uncertain. But if you're there in an open, honest, happy, or content in your own skin type thing, that people just soften in front of you. They're much more receptive. And in that respect, if you are looking for a promotion or you're looking to advance yourself, much more likely that you will achieve that if that is the vibe you're giving off. And people, I think, this is a gross generalization, but when they're in this situation where they feel like the world is against them, they're in that horrible loop of giving out, they're feeling negative, they're giving out negative vibes, the universe is only giving them negativity. Whereas as soon as you can flip that, all of a sudden you go, oh, that feels different. People are now smiling at me. They're actually wanting to help. So the generosity in people is very much down to you as an individual. Now, on that note, a quick question. Do you think, because I know that I'm happiest when I'm in company with other people, to an extent, I'll caveat that, again, on any given day. Do you believe there is such a thing as introverts and extroverts? Or is that just a perception? Are we all on any given day extrovert and on certain days introvert? The two can coexist. But do those concepts, those constructs actually exist within the characteristics of a human being?
I'm not sure from kind of my background. I can definitely say whether it's a yes or a no. What I know from the research of positive psychology is that we do have preferences when it comes to what we draw energy from. So there might be situations as you said, that you're drawing lots of energy by interacting with lots of people. You might have you have moments when potentially this is not restful for you. This is not refueling you. You actually need to have a moment of peace. You need to have a moment of being on your own. And I think you're right. It is a mixed amount of what activities we need to generate that energy and get energized. And I think the extroversion, introversion that is often used refers really much to that. And it's one of those ways that people like to categorize other people, to give them some kind of principles and rules of saying, oh yeah, this person is extroverted, so probably they're chatting quite a lot in the meeting, or that person is introverted, they probably will need more time to reflect on things. But I think, as with everything in psychology and in the research, those things shouldn't be the kind of end point categories. They should be maybe some guiding principles to understand how we behave when we are around colleagues, and where we find energy, and what do we need to rest and recover. And I think that is much more useful than necessarily labeling those preferences.
Because I think as soon as we do that, as soon as we label, it's like, well, I am an extrovert or I am an introvert. And then it seems to be that inability to be anything else. If you tell yourself, if that's the story you're telling yourself, that I am an introvert, then you start to behave in that particular way, even though you very well may not be. But it just might be on that particular occasion that you're feeling a little bit socially anxious.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that you're an introvert. But again, those labels can't always be helpful, can they?
Yes, and I think the idea is that generally when it comes to our self-talk, I think it's very much trying to soften it as much as possible to give ourselves a space for growth and exploration. So rather than saying, I am this and you are that, it's thinking, well, perhaps in this situation, I could explore. Or, okay, in this moment, what if I try that? So, and that way we become less rigid, and we can show ourselves more self-compassion, and we can step away from certain stories we tell ourselves and try something different, something new. But if we in our self-talk, if we're very rigid, I never, I always, I'm this, you that, then we very much putting ourselves in like a kind of a cage in which we don't have much space to maneuver, to learn about ourselves and explore different ways of living or talking to ourselves internally. So I think that is a really good point. Soften your self-talk to help you to learn more often.
Yeah.
Like
and
that.
how
Like
influential would you say childhood is in terms of how you think and your, how you develop your personality and your general happiness? Because it seems they talk about psychology, it's sometimes always a thing about going back to your childhood traumas and trying to process them. Is that quite a fundamental piece of people if they've got unresolved childhood trauma in terms of their life's trajectory?
I think, yes, absolutely. You'll find lots of research that shows that our formative years shape us of who we are, because they put they showcase certain beliefs. People role model certain behaviors that we will later on take on board. I think, again, there are different schools of psychology that approach this topic differently. I guess in positive psychology specifically, we talk more about what are your tools and resources right now, and what do you want to build going forward. But it doesn't mean that going back and having exploration and asking questions with curiosity, not judgment of, I wonder why I behave like that, or do I just sound like my mother? Like, what, it's actually, they can be really powerful and insightful. But I think we also need to let the past go and accept it to some extent, because we have only present moment. So I think it is a balance. But my background and my research is more in the present and more looking forward rather than looking at the specific childhood experiences.
Yeah, I like that.
Go ahead,
James,
Nick.
you going? So,
I won't
Claudia,
go.
I was just wanting to move on to the book, The Alphabet of Happiness. Let's start off with why you decided to write a book and exactly what is it about?
Okay, so the book is related to my experience that I already mentioned, going through very difficult times, starting a podcast, and then really deciding to put all that together in a format where you can pick it up and think, what do I need now? Well, I need this, and have a look of what you could do within that specific topic. So hence the alphabet. So of course we have 26 chapters, surprise, surprise. And they go from A to Z, and each, who knew?
Genius.
Wow.
Genius.
Wow.
I mean, genius.
It's like you planned it. I mean, wow.
Exactly. And each chapter is a really short chapter in which I would say share my story of how I applied a certain concept, where it comes from, why I wrote this specific topic, how it impacted my life. Then you have solid science research saying this is what research within neuroscience, positive psychology, you name it, says. And then you have certain experts contributing their point of view. And then you have really practical, reflective questions and 5 actions to go away and take on board. So it is really 26 principles, from acceptance, which is emotional regulation, to zest, how we manage our energy and kickstart feel-good chemicals, to really, that are backed by science, to help you to create overall more happiness at work, in relationships, and my favorite, in my own skin. I really needed that one. So that's what the book is about. And again, as I already mentioned, it really relates to my experiences and my overall happiness experiment that I went through.
Was it hard to write, Claudia? Have you struggled at times with birthing this thing into the world?
Oh my God. Whew. Of course. I
can imagine.
You know, it, people say this, like, everyone has a book inside them. I'm like, really?
Yeah.
I mean,
It's like having to pull it out. It's extract it through sort of, I was anesthetized, and I had to have this thing surgically removed out of me if it is there.
Exactly. I guess, yeah. So I believe really in the power of community, and I knew I won't be able to do this on my own. I had a fantastic book mentor who helped me to be accountable, to say, okay, this is your target for next 6 weeks. This is your target for next 6 weeks.
Good.
I needed to trick my imposter syndrome a lot. So my imposter syndrome is called Linda, and I do apologize to all Lindas. I'm sure you are wonderful human beings. But my imposter syndrome, Linda, would say like, oh my God, no one will read this. This is just not good enough. And I just needed to trick Linda, saying, well, but it doesn't matter. I'm not writing for anyone. I'm just writing for my book mentor. They will only read it. And, and I just trick Linda till the point is like, publisher picked it up. I got a contract. Now it's coming out in September. And I'm like, don't worry, Linda. No one will read it. It's fine. So that was really my hack of writing a book, really. Having someone to motivate you and then tricking yourself into saying, no one will read this, it's okay. So just write it from the heart, and let's see what happens.
Yeah, I'm guessing Linda's not Polish.
Yeah, I think, yes, this is quite interesting, actually. You just pointed it out. I think I am moving towards Britishness after 18 years of living in the UK. I think that's what happens.
It's interesting that the imposter syndrome is British as opposed to Polish, but let's leave that there.
Different
That's
conversation.
not,
Different conversation.
Yeah. Moving on.
And in terms of your podcasts as well, Klaudia, what have you learned in general from the guests that you have on? Have you seen a common theme in terms of the type of things that they say or the major problems in society?
I think what I've noticed is that different experts specialize in different parts of the happiness, and that's what I really try to do in the book, in the podcast, to bring it all together. There is just so much out there, and I think, depending who you talk to as an expert, they will really hone into the different aspects of happiness, and that's very valid, but doesn't give you the holistic picture. I also, I guess, learned that this is all great, this is all interesting, but if you don't do anything with it, it's pointless, it's worthless. It doesn't really matter. It's just data on a piece of paper if you really don't think about how am I going to apply that into my life. And that's why on the podcast, I test drive those hacks. I challenge my guests to say, well, this is wonderful research and this sounds great, but how I, as a human being, every day, with my frustrations, with my very hectic daily life, how can I apply this in a realistic way so that this can help my happiness? And then, the conversation changes, because it's not an experiment, it's a real life. We have to keep it practical. And I'm all about being really practical. And once you really dissect it like that, there is lots of very interesting aspects there, but there's also some aspects which this sounds interesting, but how realistic it is. So I think through the podcast, I get the chance to really think how this can work.
Yeah.
So do you feel like you're challenging the traditional model a little bit? Because when I think about psychology, you think about Freud, you think about the sort of chronology and et cetera, and it's like, is this relevant for today's society? And it was written at a time when, perceptions of men, women, very different than what they are today. And there's certain things that goes through sort of science, sort of medical science as well, that is not questioned because it was deemed to be written so long ago that, it has to still hold true. But everyone is evolving, the human element is evolving, and it's almost beyond recognition to how it was there. So are you seeing that similarity in psychology, that sort of new research is coming out all the time, and then it's all of a sudden, well, that starts to make me think that all of that I've thought before isn't necessarily true, because this piece of research has debunked that. And then who's to say it's been debunked? Is that an individual? Is it then sort of peer reviewed, that everybody then comes together and has a sort of a collective perspective on it to say, well, yes, now this is widely believed to be the case? It must be an ever changing landscape. And how do you navigate that?
And that's why I think it's so important that we take those things not as kind of black and white categories or black and white answers, but we take them with a pinch of salt of, okay, this is interesting. Perhaps I could try it and see what happens. And it might be that it doesn't work for you, and that's okay as well. But really think about it critically. When it comes to research, I'm passionate about science. So for me, it's very much, I don't want to look at this from a perspective of there is a fashion now to do cold showers. We all should be doing that. Or there is that influencer or a well-being guru said this one, so that's it. I'm not going ever eat this because of that apparently impacts this and that in my body. I think it's just being really critical of this and understanding that, yes, research discovers something every day that we didn't know beforehand. Critically evaluate where that research comes from, but most importantly, what does this mean to you? and how you feel about that and how it's impact your happiness and well-being, rather than maybe following trends, maybe, as you said, following research that already expired, and being very rigid in, oh, but I must because someone said so. All about that individual approach and experimentation, I would say.
Yeah, because person's dream can be another one's nightmare, can't it? Everybody's different. So I definitely can see that. In the workplace, Claudia, what would you say in terms of giving people incentives or making people feel good at work? Is it all about the money, or is it something about feeling valued or respected at work? What's the biggest thing in the workplace that's going to make your employees skip to work?
Skip to work. I love that. I love that. What success looks like for you people.
Yeah.
I'm
just
going
love
to
it.
work. They just cannot wait. Okay, so in relation to workplace happiness, there's lots of research that has been done within that. And when we talk about happiness in the workplace, we really need to be thinking more about engagement and job satisfaction.
Okay.
And when you have a look at that, there are specifically 5 drivers that help us to create more happiness at the individual level, but also at the organizational level. And these are autonomy. We are happier at work if we have autonomy and we can make decisions. If you ever had a micromanager, you know this is true. Second one is fairness. So this is being fairly compensated. So this is where the pay will come into play, but also being fairly treated in terms of processes and procedures, and also in relation to our work-life balance. So if we have certain boundaries around our work-life balance, are these being respected, or actually they being broken, and therefore we feel we're being treated unfairly? You then have purpose. So we know that people are happier in the workplace if they see meaning in their work and they are able to connect it with the purpose of the organization. This is fantastic research by Amy Wrześniewski on job crafting. This idea that I understand how my role contributes to the bigger purpose of the organization. You then have sense of belonging. So again, we know that people are happy in the workplace if they work with people who make them feel included and they like the people they work with. Again, if you ever unfortunately work in a toxic environment, you know how important those relationships are in the workplace.
Yeah.
And finally, you have mastery. So this has 2 components. In mastery is people are happier if they can use the skills and do day-to-day what they are good at. And that's why AI is causing so much anxiety, because certain skill, people feel that their skills may be getting, let's say, expired in relationship to that new technology, and something that was their strength, something they really enjoyed to be doing, suddenly might be taken away. And within mastery, it's also the specialist that I specifically focus on, the learning and development, where it's about having the people are happier if they have opportunity to grow and learn within the roles, and not necessarily progress from this role to a next role in that fashion, but overall progress in their development and skill set. So those 5 specific components are very tied into the happiness in the workplace. The good news is that at individual level, we can be shaping them. And then as leaders and managers, we really can be honing onto them to build happy teams. And Nick Marks, who is a happiness statistician, he says, miserable people do miserable work. And he specifically shows how those 5 components, if you don't have them in the workplace, you have higher sickness levels at the organizational level, you have lower retention, you're not generating as much profit, you have less creativity and innovation. And this is data that has been covered in organizational levels. So those 5 key components I would really encourage people to think about. And as you can see, yes, pay is there, but it's not.
It's not the be all and the end all.
Yeah, that's a fantastic
Exactly.
framework, isn't it, James?
Yeah,
I love
really
that.
good.
Who said it? Was it Karl Marx? Did you say at the end? Who was the?
No, so Nick Marx is Nick Marx was
A distant relative.
just something I heard on the streets. That's what this framework is. Yeah, so it comes from a research of Daniel Pink and Nick Marx, who is a happiness statistician.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are there any? I mean, obviously, it's down to the organization as a whole, but are there any examples of businesses that you know of that are doing that really well? And I can imagine that, when you've got a leader of a business and they're under huge pressure, that this is a kind of a nice thing to have, having these sort of structures in place. In an ideal world, utopian society would all have that integrated into it. I think the sort of the Nordic model is very much, Scandinavian model is very much geared towards that. How much of this do you think is a nice to have, and how much that people really are now putting emphasis on this and recognizing that to be more productive, they need a happier workforce?
I think we are definitely on the journey. When I was starting working in the field, oh my God, 12, 13 years ago, it was happiness.
You're not that old.
No, still, I don't believe that.
Still, it just feels like I just started. I just came to uni, to UK, and here it goes all these years later. I think, so when I started, the model was much more traditional. Happiness, engagement. Come on, what are we talking about? Yeah, woo, exactly. All the fluff. No. It's definitely, we see that because more and more people, organizations are able to see the impact of well-being, burnout, on the businesses. And because of that, people start asking questions. Okay, so if this is not profitable, if this is undermining performance of the organization, what's the alternative? An alternative is engagement. Alternative is happiness. So I think we are definitely more and more on the journey and recognizing that. But still, I would love to, and I'm really hoping that in the future this will be the case, that every organization will have chief happiness officer in them that specifically looks at that. So it's not just currently, I think often is disjointed, right? So I'm doing learning and development and engagement in the workplace. My colleagues are looking at well-being. Someone else is looking at the pay and rewards and benefits. So it's a bit like disjointed.
Okay.
I really think the future to really bring this together is to have a chief happiness officer who is responsible for the happiness and engagement of the organization. And as I said, all of this can be supported by with data. So I think that's where we're heading to, but we still have a long place to go yeah, absolutely. Especially if you're saying that people think that this is a vitamin in the business, that this is something nice to have till you start losing people, you dealing with burnout. You suddenly think all of those costs, you think, ooh, maybe I should start thinking about this differently.
We think of the cost and the time element of recruiting new people as opposed to retaining staff. I mean, it makes sense, doesn't it? Why would you not look after your existing staff? Because it takes a massive cut off the bottom line if you've then got to start recruiting, and then they're not productive for probably 5 or 6 months after when they start. So you've got that time lag as well as the cost of the business.
Yes, and there's so many different elements. Sickness, very, very, very costly to the business.
Through stress.
Poor management, really costly to the business. Like we can really be, there's so many costs, really. They're hidden costs. They're hidden costs, but they are there.
So it's long-termism as opposed to short-term thinking, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
Klaudia, just lastly, you touched on it just then before, but the big AI hype train, what do you think about this? Where is it going? Are we going to see AI Klaudia and then you're just going to be at home and send your virtual being to work to do your thing? What do you think about this revolution that we're going through? How is it going to impact maybe your area, your industry and the workplace? What are you seeing at the moment?
So I think, yes, so this is very interesting. Of course, we need to talk about AI because it's just like everywhere.
It's everywhere, yeah.
Everywhere. I really think it's about treating it as the innovative disruption, and really thinking, okay, how are we going to utilize to what we're trying to achieve? So I think I think from my perspective, when it comes to learning and development, yes, lots of skills that I'm using day to day, like writing training, like designing specific courses, e-learning, can be done by AI. And rather than, I guess, shying away from that, thinking, oh my God, what I'm going to do in the future, is thinking, how can I utilize that to the advantage of my colleagues? And what skills I need to develop to be able to do it well? And I think really, and I'm sure everyone says about that, is that human aspect, right? That, yes, of course, at the moment, at least, AI is very around the information and automation heavy. And can we therefore make sure that we have more headspace to do the things that we always want to do, never have time for creativity, connection, etc. So I think, like with any tools, just assessing it and using it smartly to our advantage. That's my point of view. I think AI also in my field comes from the idea of coaching. There is more and more coaching bots, and that's definitely will be becoming kind of quite big quite quickly. Again, I think individuals have to assess it at their individual level, how much it serves you to talk to AI rather than a human being. And if yes, okay, utilize it with the knowledge that this is AI.
I mean, I can see a case being made for having an AI bot or that sort of almost like a therapist that, like I was saying, when you're in those moments where you can't see the wood for the trees, you don't have the capability at that moment in time to go, actually, there's a lot of great stuff going on right now. And those little reminders, like when we can't think of it for ourselves because we're in that hole, that you then have the ability to go, right, I'm just going to tap in there and it'll then tell me what my affirmations are, or it'll just remind me how great my life is right now and take me maybe through a 5-step process to get me out of that loop. Whereas if you have to rely on going to therapy or having a therapist on the end of the phone, whatever, they might not be available, or they might be having an off day because we're all human, right? That's something that's there consistently to say, actually, I need this right now. And it's on demand when you need it. I can see a use case for that massively. Because it's just a reminder when you don't necessarily have that ability at that moment in time, that you can then go in there and it will give you what you need.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you come to that situation with expectation of, I'm seeking ideas, I'm seeking information, then great. If you're seeking empathy, connection, understanding,
it's different.
Then I think you just need to be aware of that. And I think that may be where we haven't got to that yet. We haven't got to yet really those principles of how AI is operating or how we want it to be operating. And maybe that's why there is still some anxiety around, okay, what that could be an impact on an individual. So, but yeah, great point. Let's see, maybe we do the show in 10 years time, etc. And it won't be robots. It won't be us. It will be just our AI is chatting to each other.
I won't have aged today. I'll still be.
We will see. We will see.
Maybe a different shirt.
So where can everybody find you, Klaudia? Where's the best place to go? We've got the podcast, haven't we? The Happiness Challenge podcast on there. Is that on Spotify and Apple?
Yes, absolutely. On all the podcasting. Yes, absolutely. On all the podcasting platforms. My website, thehappinesschallenge.co.uk. You have information there about book. You can follow me on LinkedIn. You can find out more what I do. So I think that will be the best place.
Excellent. So we really appreciate you coming on, Klaudia. You are you're a bit of a ray of sunshine, aren't you? If you can feel the energy, I'm not sure you can get that from AI. So yeah, it's contagious, isn't it? Human energy. When somebody smiles, they're bringing their passion, their interests. That's something that's very hard to convey in AI. So yeah, we really appreciate you coming on, and have a fantastic weekend. Enjoy the weather.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Bye bye, everyone.
Okay, take care. Bye bye. We'll see you on the other side, Klaudia. Bye bye.